This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Hey there, Thunder Buddies and Travelers down Thunder Road. It's us, Days of Thunder, the WCW Thunder rewatch podcast that you didn't ask for, but we did anyway, coming to you as part of the Voices of Wrestling podcast network. I'm your host, your foreign object on Thunder Road, Dave Ryan, and I am joined, as always, by my faithful co-host, Stagger Lee Malone. Lee, how are you this week?
I'm good, feeling good. It feels like it's been a while since we've done a regular Thunder. I know it's only a couple of weeks. But yeah. It feels kind of comforting to be back on a regular Thunder schedule.
I get that feeling, like that podcast feeling around like the December, January time, where we kind of get unmoored from what day it is. And we usually do special episodes around Christmas. Someone's like, what the fuck are we recording now? And stuff like I genuinely have no idea when the last like regular Thunder episode came out. If you told me it was 2 weeks ago, if you told me it was a month ago, I'd believe you.
But the time this one drops, it'll have to be at least 5 weeks.
Good God.
We did a pay-per-view.
Yeah. Yeah, we did. Yeah. So our last free show was Slamboree. And then it would be nearly a month.
Yeah.
Since episode 62. That's wild. That's fucking wild. But we're back. We're back in the regular rota of things, for good or for ill. Before we get to that shit, my friend, we're recording this just after the new year. And even though they will be stale as fuck takes, I think this is probably our most kind of closest to the actual date of it happening to talk very briefly about Wrestle Kingdom, which I know you took the day off to watch. I sort of did my usual thing I do every year with Wrestle Kingdom in Ireland, because the main show kicks off at 8 a.m. our time, is that I always forget the night before to go to sleep early. Then I do wake up on time for the show to start, plug in the Chromecast, get it streaming, and then I do the kind of fall asleep, wake up, and end up having to rewatch half the show in the afternoon. How was your Wrestle Kingdom experience this year?
Yeah, it was good. It was enjoyable. I was awake for the pre-show, and by the time we were on,
was that 6 or 7?
I think it was 6:20. Was the
oh, get out.
Now I'm awake that time most mornings anyway, but I think by the time we were on the final intermission, Connor had come down to start watching the show, so he literally came down for the beginning for the main show.
Yeah. So that's a smart guy. You have taught him well about the business.
I enjoyed the show. I thought it breezed by 4 hours for the main card. I think it was just over 4, about 4:15, 4:20, something like that.
Yeah.
I thought it was very, very enjoyable.
I think the only big disappointment of the matches I wanted to see that I thought would deliver for what I wanted, the only one I was kind of disappointed in not getting time was the women's title match.
I thought that worked in the context of the way it was presented, in that they just beat the fuck out of each other for 5 minutes, and I thought it was very enjoyable.
Yeah, you see, and maybe it's because they beat each other up that I was just like, if this is just getting started and we're getting like, it went like what, 5 minutes odd? Like if we got
6 minutes,
if we got another 10 minutes, and I know it was mostly there to serve the arrival of Mercedes afterwards. But I don't know. I like Kyrie, I like Tam Nakano, and I would have enjoyed seeing them batter each other for a while longer. And yeah, I think like the one that I'm sure like a week or so after the fact, by the time this show drops, people are still ranting and raving about Ospreay and Kenny, which was fabulous.
Genuinely one of the most incredible matches I've ever seen.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's amazing that by the time this show drops, Kenny Omega would have been in a ladder match as well.
Yeah. It's a hell of a week. And he was in, was it last week? He was in Falls Count Anywhere match.
Where
yeah,
he took
so.
the bump off a ledge through a table.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. You almost wouldn't have put it past him to be like on a red eye back to Seattle to wrestle tonight. Like, if it was like physically possible.
Well, speaking of his eyes, did you see? I think it was Melter put out a tweet there saying, but Ospreay and Omega are fine. Omega's eye is swollen shut.
Yeah.
That was from the cheeky Nando's kick.
Yeah.
And he also has the footprint of Ospreay's boot on his face.
Yeah. They leathered each other. I think, funnily enough, you wouldn't have necessarily expected it from the two guys and the style of wrestling they're most closely associated with. But if anyone honored Inoki's legacy of being hard bastards on that show, it's the two of them, because they destroyed each other. And it's basically set us up now for a year of storylines in New Japan with Ospreay being rattled by the loss and giving himself 1 year to beat him or he's gone, which is cool. So I think that's the thing that I come out of Wrestle Kingdom most enthusiastic about, is that I feel that there's actually a direction that I'm interested in. Between that and we've got Shingo Okada.
Never going to turn that down.
No, God, no. As we recently talked about behind the paywall on our latest TRL, Shingo, quite good at the wrestling.
Just a bit.
Yeah, but look, we won't labour the point too long because it was over a week ago. But I just felt excited to actually talk about some really good wrestling.
Well, here's one other thing. FTR are now beltless.
Yes,
and the big talking point seems to be that they are definitely going back.
Like, there's two acts that that there's been a lot of rumblings about going back to the Fed lately, and I feel like they're two acts that should absolutely know better, and it's FTR and Miro. Now a lot of the Miro going back thing is his missus talking to various outlets, and part of me thinks, I don't know if that's her angling for him to go back or angling for herself to go back, because Tony Khan clearly could have signed her any time over the last however long since she's been sacked and hasn't. There have been several times where I thought they were going to bring her in during the Redeemer stuff.
Yeah. She was referenced every other week.
Yeah, so I don't know, but I think God bless, to be a successful professional wrestler, you have to have a lot of self-confidence. But even with Triple H in charge, FTR and Miro are fucking kidding themselves if they think they're going to be slotted higher than they were before they left for any more than about 6. They'll get the Drew treatment. Do you know where
they'll get that much?
Miro might. I don't think a tag team would.
Who are FTR going to feud with in that company?
Usos and the New Day, and that's it. The Brutes, maybe. There'll be they will have good matches. Do you know what I mean? There's actually decent tag teams in there, but no one gives a fuck about the tag team division.
Drunk Uso will probably have fucking DUI'd again and got to.
But they will. I assume. I again, it's trying to predict what fucking WWE are going to do, but I'm assuming the whole fucking bloodline thing is going to crumble asunder by WrestleMania. Yeah. Whether it's Sammy and Kevin beating the Usos, which I think would be great.
Are Sammy and Kevin going to get a big run as a team? I don't think so.
No, but we'd all love to see it for a little while. But yeah, like I just think they're two acts that, like, I know, like, you know, Lanza says it a lot on the flagship. He's like, no wrestler's ever happy with their push, no matter where they are on the card. And like, I don't blame them. I particularly Miro, I think, you know, FTR, depending on what way you look at it, is like, they were basically like, they were given every belt they possibly could, apart from the AEW belts this year. They were pushed as a huge act. They had a lot of big, great matches. Like, the one thing you can say that was left on the table is them never doing all the belts on the table, them versus the Bucks, when the Bucks had the AEW belts. That's the one thing you can say was left on the table. Miro, a bit more of a ball drop, I think. Like, there's been several situations. I know he himself rejected the most recent idea for him to be like to heat up. Was it heat up MJF?
Heat up
Ricky, that was it. He was going to lose to Ricky on the way to challenging MJF, and he didn't want to do it, allegedly. But there's definitely more you could do with that guy, for sure. That's kind of the story of his career. It's not like WWE were fucking batting 1,000 with the guy, otherwise he never would have left.
Well, this is the thing with Miro. Miro is not a man that's in it for the love of the business. He's in it for the money, and he's never hidden that fact. That's fine. Yeah, but like, who's Miro to be saying, you know, I shouldn't be losing to X, Y, or Z? Like, yeah. I think that's the bit where, like, if he hadn't done that and he had just done the job, I think he'd still have a lot more people on his side, because I think there definitely is more you can do with him, and the fans definitely, like, when he shows up, he's over as fuck. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's definitely juice there, like, with people
Miro.
Were into the thought of, was it the late summer they were going to do Malachi Black and Miro. Yeah, because they were going to do, like, was it House of Black versus Miro, Sting, and Darby? It looked like they were going for. And then, peel that off into a Black versus Miro program, which would have been very good. But yeah, like, it's just kind of, it's a bit disappointing. But I don't, like, I think in Miro's case, he might be happy if it's 100% the money, because WWE will definitely pay him more to do less. Although, not necessarily do less, because he'd be fucking working twice, 3 times as many dates, and they won't let him do his fucking Twitch if he still wants to do that. True. So, well, speaking of Monet, what did you think of the big debut?
Flat, but not in a way that I hadn't expected. Like, I didn't think the crowd was going to fucking lose their head like they did for, like, someone like a Jericho who had a history in Japan or anything like that. There was definitely a reaction. You know, there was an intrigue and, like, oh my god, it is her. But it wasn't like, people weren't ripping up the chairs and fucking them at the ring or anything like that. And then the one move, and I will put this on Kyrie, like, Kyrie fucked the move up, not Mercedes.
I still don't know what happened. I've watched it multiple times. I'm still not quite sure.
She goes to, like, flip her off her back into the DDT, and Kyrie, instead of, like, landing on her feet, lands on her knees. For some reason, like, she thought it was going down in one swift movement. It was just miscommunication. But, like, I think if you are judging by this that it's a busted flush with her outside of WWE, you're insane.
You're an idiot,
yeah. She is going to get a massive reaction at that San Jose show.
So you're adamant now it's her.
No, well, the San Jose show is where she's challenging Kyrie.
Oh, sorry.
Like,
the LA show, sorry.
The LA show, well, we'll know literally hours before this podcast gets posted whether she's the mystery partner. Although, hopefully it is. Because, like, I want to see her anywhere and everywhere, you know. I don't want to see her in, like, I want her to take up all the dream matches, not Natty. As Natty this week posted about wanting to wrestle Julia. Oh, God hell. It still gets me, man. It still gets me.
It's still the funniest thing I've heard all year.
Yeah. Right, okay. We have one little bit of business before we get to Thunder 63, my friend. And that is to talk about the kind of the way content is going to be dropped on the Patreon for the coming months over at largemanappears.com. We thought rather than go to the control center on this one, we'd just do it live. And that is to say, we thought of an idea that kind of, I suppose, increases the variety of content you're getting, while alleviating the kind of pressure on one or the other of us individually. Because what we were for the first 6 months, because again, you know, you're learning as you build these things out. And for the first 6 months, I had kind of taken on the doing the spreadsheet, the sheet every month, where I was putting up my match of the year tracking and talking about it in an article every month, which was an additional piece of work for me. And then we had no real kind of who was doing the solo audio every month thing. We didn't have it set in stone, but we decided, kind of talking back and forth over the Christmas, that the way we do it is this. We're going to alternate months, like who does what. So say, for example, Lee might do the sheet in January, and if Lee does he's doing a match of the year spreadsheet this year.
Yes,
is basically the idea we got for this. Is Lee said he was going to try do it for this year, so Lee, if he's doing the spreadsheet article, which usually drops around the middle of the month, might be a little late this month, just because
we're trying to get through most of the month.
There's very little wrestling has happened, you know, over the period since the start of the year.
Yeah, the thing about the preceding months is you can catch up on stuff that's already happened.
Yes. But the reason I'm bringing that up is, so if Lee does that, then I'll do the solo audio that month, and then the following month it'll be me doing the sheet, Lee doing the solo audio. So that way you're still guaranteed a sheet post and a solo audio post, and it's not putting pressure on, like, say, months where it'll be my turn to do the solo audio. If I was doing the solo audio, the sheet, plus our 2 premium podcasts on Patreon, plus our 2 free podcasts on VOW, plus the edits for all of those, it was piling up. And then we run into problems when things happen, like in December when I got sick and our schedule got blown the fuck up because I couldn't do anything. So this is hopefully to insulate us against that happening going forward.
Then also the fact that we are at the whim of, like, my children,
yes,
your work, my work,
yes,
our respective partners.
Which I had kind of in listening back to some clips, because I'm trying to clip some stuff to go up on YouTube as promo clips, and I am resolving in 2023 to moan about my time less. Because I feel like we started for about 4 months. We started every show by going, I'm so fucking busy, and that's not what people are here for. They're here for us to talk about Stevie Ray. And I'm happy to provide that.
I'll be honest, I'd rather be busy than talk about Stevie Ray.
So yeah, that's my little New Year's resolution. But in terms of what you're getting every month over at largemanappears.com for the sweet sum of 5 Europeans, just over the cost of a cup of coffee, you're going to get yourself still 2 premium podcasts every month. You are going to get 1 solo audio every month, 1 sheet post, and then still there will be other stuff as well, just on a kind of inconsistent. We're not guaranteeing every month there will be an additional podcast, but sometimes there will be. Like, for example, I'll hand over to you, Lee, to talk about what's coming this month, but we have one particular series that usually we would do in addition to our 2 premium ones, but because we're playing catch up with 1 show this month, that will not necessarily be the case this month, but usually TRL is on top of the series we're already doing. But what can people look forward to from the January offerings on thelargemanappears.com?
January on patreon.com/WCW Thunderpod will have had the Dragon Gate Kobe Pro Wrestling Festival 2016 show drop last week as you're listening to this. You will also have another TRL this month, which will be sold out in 1997 as selected by Erin Quinn, friend of the show, and it
Queen of the Undercard. I'm getting that nickname going,
and it is sold out 97. And as a change to more recent TRLs, it will actually be just a straight up review, not a watch along. Yeah, which is Aaron's choice.
We didn't want to drop 2 commentary tracks in a month, basically. because we know that's not everybody's flavour of podcast. So we asked Aaron, because kind of the way we do it with TRL is you can either have it as a live commentary track or you can have it as a standard Days of Thunder style review. So we asked Aaron obliged, so it will be presented as a standard premium podcast.
We will do that going forward. If you pay for the TRL level, we will ask you what you prefer, whether it be a straight up review or a watch along, and we will go with whatever the choice is of the paying public. Also, we will have a return to one of our favourite series. It'll be Rehash of the Champions 6?
6, I think,
I believe it's 6. So I haven't even looked up the card, so I don't know what's coming up on this one. But I believe we are about to begin the Steamboat.
Yeah, because they were setting up.
Yeah.
They were
Steamboat
putting
series.
Steamboat over huge on the last clash. So I'm looking forward to that. I think I have, between those shows and us doing our world class the world class Star Wars show on our Christmas special, and I've also been watching a bunch of like documentaries that got posted to YouTube about the territories, and I bought the Death of the Territories book.
Oh man, that's such a good book.
Yeah, because I watched the Tales from the Territories show, and I was like, yeah, like that's given me not much I didn't already know, but it's kind of fun getting to see some of the old timers tell stories. So then I started watching, I think I mentioned it on one of the live streams, that I watched a Wrestling at the Chase documentary that was like a local news production. It's really fucking good, and it's on YouTube, and there's several other ones kind of similar about different territories. So between that and the series we're already doing, I have a real kind of like, I'm looking forward to these rehashes more than I already was.
Yeah. So we will have a return to Rehash, another TRL. As you mentioned already, we will have a sheet update this month, whether it be myself or yourself, it's not quite decided yet. And one of us will do a solo audio. So it's a pretty jam-packed month.
Yeah, for our first month of the year. Also, we have anniversary billing, so you don't have to wait until the first of the month to sign up for Patreon. You can sign up any date, and that's the date you will be rebilled next month. It's way easier than this first of the month bollocks, to be honest. The other thing I was going to tease is that there will be a poll dropped probably not too long after this podcast posts on Voices of Wrestling, because in February, I can reveal, we're returning to the box office. My friend Days of Thunder at the Movies is coming back in February. We're batting back and forth some ideas about what kind of theme the poll will have, and then we will present you with the options for a movie for us to review. And that's one of my favourite series we do as well. I love just chatting shit about movies with anybody, but some of the movies we've already watched on this, oh boy.
After a hectic couple of months, we're bringing back the classics to the Patreon.
Yeah. In addition to that, we'll also be restoring something people really liked, which is the preview clips. So these free shows, we'll be posting a preview clip of what you can expect a couple of days before the show hits the air. Also, look out for the VOW YouTube page, because Rich is posting a lot of clips of all the podcasts up on the VOW YouTube page. Yep, and you might just see us up there. And please watch and like and share if you see any of our stuff popping up there. There was one more thing I was going to say about it. No, it's completely gone. So yeah, patreon.com/WCW Thunderpod, alargemanappears.com. That's where you need to go. We have had already, if you don't count the preview pods, 25 podcasts in the few months that we've been on Patreon up there, so you will get that whole archive as soon as you sign up for just more than a cup of coffee. So yeah,
and just think of all the burials you're missing out on if you don't sign up.
I know, right? That's the one last question I had to do. It's nothing to do with burials. A question we had for Patreon subscribers and potential future Patreon subscribers alike. It occurred to us over the Christmas period when we were doing our Christmas party live stream that, that's another thing, we probably will do some sort of prediction show for the Rumble as a live stream, but we haven't got the plans in the book for that yet either. But I do a backup recording of the Zoom that we record the show on every time, and a thought occurred to me that some people enjoy the video element of podcasts. They like to watch the hosts talk back and forth and kind of like get a vibe for the kind of austere locations we're obviously recording these things in. Definitely not like tiny spare rooms or the couch in your house or whatever. So, I'm not going to start dumping videos on there because it's time consuming just to watch videos upload to YouTube and then send the thing across. But if people are interested in also having a video version, the audio versions will all get posted as normal. But if you have an interest in the video version of some of our podcasts getting posted, please do let us know at WCW Thunderpod or in the DMs or in the comments on Patreon, wherever. Do let us know, because we just want to provide what you want for the money you have deemed fit to give us. We don't want to give you stuff you don't want, so we're not just going to start landing the videos up there either.
And we always want more money, so...
We always want more money. Yeah. Okay, let's do it, buddy.
Let's.
This is Thunder, episode 63, coming to you from Wichita, Kansas, 20th of May, 1999, with a 2.9 rating. Lee, I'm having this weird feeling, and it's probably because of, again, the schedule and the holidays and stuff like that, but it feels like we're just, and it's also the quality of the wrestling, we're never going to get over this middle of 1999 hump.
No,
I feel like we've been
it's
stuck
been
here
for years, hasn't it?
Fucking hell.
Yeah, no, I'm fully in this kind of holding pattern now of waiting for people to show up, and it just feels like, I know Savage literally only came back like 5 shows ago, but it feels like he's never been gone.
Yeah, and we've also got, I think, because we're getting to that period where we know things of what's going to happen later in the year, we can see pieces moving around the board to where we know they're going to be. You know, we see certain people who we know are going to be teaming or feuding later, having interactions now. And I know this isn't some sort of intentional grand plan from WCW in 1999. Like, they weren't thinking that far ahead. But it's just funny, with the benefit of hindsight, how we can see these guys moving
where people are aligned and may not be aligned.
Well, we got a bunch of dark matches on this show. Okay, Lee. Do you want to hear about them?
Sure.
We had I think it's 4 dark matches, or is it 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dark matches on this show, which I thought was unusual for a Thunder.
It was obviously a live taping, so they wanted to just fill out the cards.
It was see, because they missed, this is what I'm thinking, because they were preempted, they did a double shot worth of Thunder, but they just didn't air half of it, because this wasn't recorded the week it was aired. It was recorded the week they were preempted.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay, that would explain why we never saw the commentators on camera and why they sounded like they were in a booth.
It was recorded on, I think, the 12th or the 13th, according to Cage Match, and it was released on the 20th. Okay. So that week they were preempted. They were recording. But the dark matches saw Hack versus the dearly departed Mike Enos. Super Calo, who I have not fucking thought about in ages, versus Ernest Miller. Silver King, who I also have not seen on this show in ages, versus Vampiro.
Oh man,
which I'd say was actually pretty good.
I didn't see that much.
Conan versus Hugh Morris, which I absolutely do not want to see. And El Dandy versus La Parca, which I bet was like a fun little match.
Yeah, I'd love to have that in Thunder.
Yeah. We got, I think, I'm feeling like when I load up these shows now, I'm preemptively expecting a video package I've already seen to greet me as soon as the WCW ident is done. So I was surprised that this was a cold open. So for a brief, lovely 60 to 90 seconds of this show, we didn't get a video package.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I've been watching, like actually rewatching Suits. Love that show, and every episode begins with like previously on Suits, and that's what I was expecting when I stuck on Nitro or Thunder. It was like a previously on Nitro. Just fucking
previously on AMC's WCW Thunder.
But yeah, no, like here's the thing. It's 10 days since the pay-per-view. So we coming in, I don't know about you, But I was expecting everything to be blown to shit.
Yeah. And I guess this was when we went off the air after the pay-per-view and we were corrected by a listener after this. We thought we were going to miss 2 Nitros because we thought it was just Thunder was preempted, but it was both Thunder and Nitro were preempted last week. So we've only missed 1 Nitro. That said, we still seem to have missed quite a bit.
Well, to be fair, I was going to say, I don't think we missed as much as I would have expected from 2 weeks of shows. So
I do think, to their credit, and now they could have used a more precise edit and cut some of it down, but we did see most of the things that were referred to as being important on the Nitro.
I think there was one thing we didn't see that we probably could have done with seeing, which was Sting and Luger standing tall against the Steiners.
Yeah, that would have been pretty cool. But yeah, it's we get kind of 2 news headlines from today before they throw to the first segment, and that was that we have a new world champion.
Yeah, we knew that.
Big sexy Kevin Nash. We knew that. And the other thing we knew but didn't know, because it's not really that much of a surprise, is that Randy Savage has gone mad. This is basically the actual theme of the show. It's the first time. It's the first time. And look, you know, there was some parts of it I enjoyed. Mm-hmm. And there was some parts of it I didn't. But what I will commend them for was they were like, right, we have one thing that we really need to get over on Thunder. And that is that Randy Savage has fucking lost it. Right? And if that's a big thing that you want to promote, and obviously he's gunning after the world champion, go for it. Do you mean go the whole hog? Because there are so many championship programs in WCW since we started this show where they just don't commit. They half-ass it, and then like maybe 2 weeks beforehand they start actually ramping it up, or they don't do anything interesting. But you have, like, they really want to hit this home, and it doesn't all land because the bookers are largely incompetent. But fair play to them for trying something a bit different, because these taped Thunders are usually just match video package. Yeah. So they did a storyline on a Thunder. Yeah,
they did. Look, we always give them credit for trying different things on these Thunder shows. Yeah, I suppose I can't fault them. It's just Savage was all over the show. Like, yeah, literally all over the show.
First, instead of to a video package, we go to Mean Gene, and he's on the ramp to talk to Buff Bagwell. During this part, Mike Tenay accidentally calls it Nitro, a rare slip up for the man. He says, you know, because Gene asks him, you know, both Steiner brothers have turned on you recently. What are your thoughts on it? He says he's not surprised at all that Scott would turn on him, but he kind of is with Rick Steiner. No one would have seen this coming.
Well, I mean, why would he be? He's the one that turned on Rick.
But this is babyface Buff Bagwell, so he's supposed to be an idiot. Maybe that's actually... Do you know the way... You know the way sometimes there's characters that the kind of like the delineation between them as face and heel is very slight. And there is continuity. Like, say, when a good modern example is Kevin Owens. When Kevin Owens is a face or when Kevin Owens is a heel, there's actually very little difference. It's just who Kevin he Owens, is trying to fight. You know what I mean? He is Kevin Owens. Maybe the consistent thread with Buff Bagwell is he is a dumb person.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So he uncharacteristically says that what he's going to do is he's going to show those Steiner brothers that he is Buff and he is the stuff, which I'm sure they're not aware of. He says, and I think this is, you want to put something up in like writing on a poster and hang it above the locker room in 1999 WCW, like Ted Lasso does with his Believe sign. And that's, he says, this is in WCW, there is no loyalty, there are no friends, and the NWO are egomaniacs.
Yeah, funny enough that Buff Bagwell will be talking about how other people are egomaniacs when his literal gimmick is egomaniac who loves himself. And
who was recently in the NWO.
Yeah.
Yeah. he calls out Savage for tonight to come try beat him up. So he says that, you know, like, Savage has been running roughshod over this place. I'd like to see him try beat me up. So, you know, come and take me tonight if you're not chicken. Already in a segment and a half, if you count the commentators introducing the show as half, they have said the phrase out of control maybe 400 times. Yeah. And this is, I think, where probably, if I'm right, your fatigue with the Savage angle comes in, is that it's really over-egging it.
Yeah, like, I get pushing it. Like you said, I get trying something new. I get pushing that, like, he's legitimately fucking insane. But you've just done the Ric Flair is in an insane asylum thing. So...
And it's, to me, it's... I don't draw that comparison. I draw the comparison to the Steiner being out of control angle. It's the Scott Steiner angle, but again, you know. And it's just funny. There's another example on this show, I think, if I remember it when we're talking about it later, where it's just like, this company has fucking, like we said it before, it has 3 ideas and it just reruns them, and we can add to that. So there's like NWO family drama, and we can definitely add to that list. X is out of control. That's definitely one of the 3 things. One of the 3 ideas they have. I suppose teams turning on each other and then reuniting is maybe number 3 there, because that happens a lot and is also a running thread on this show with the Steiners and with
the Harlem Heat.
Yeah. There's a whole lot of that shit going on. Again, NWO qualify under that banner. Raven and Saturn. The list actually goes on quite a long while. But anyway, we then get 2 back-to-back video packages. One, absolutely fair enough. You're recapping the big 3 matches from the pay-per-view, and I think that is always a good thing to do.
Sure, it was the big 4 matches.
Oh, big 4 matches, sorry. So which matches did we have recapped?
You had Flair versus Piper.
Yeah.
Sting versus Goldberg.
Yeah.
Nash versus DDP for the world title.
Yeah.
And, of course, the real main event, Gorgeous George versus Little H.
Yeah. If you haven't listened to our last episode, the Slamboree episode, by the way, you will be shocked as to how entertained we were by that match. I still can't get over it.
Oh, go watch it. If you haven't seen that match, go watch it.
Yeah, like, genuinely go, like, it's a morbid curiosity, but it's actually, like, in an era where this company consistently and terminally under-delivers, this is the rare match that over-delivers, you know?
I have a Gorgeous George hot take, but I'm going to save it for the main event.
I have seen some Gorgeous George is in the news the last couple of weeks. Have you seen this? No. She's apparently hawking Randy's shoes on eBay. But, you know, some people are alleging that they may not be legit. He had some sort of endorsement, some sneaker endorsement. I don't know if it was Reebok or Puma or who it was that were making, like, NWO sneakers for him.
Okay.
And she apparently they never made it to, like, production.
Okay.
But, like, she has, like, the prototypes or whatever. And I think that's what she's selling. I saw this the other day. For quite a lot of money. But anyway, we move on. We also get a recap right after that of the Steiner reunion, which again, like, we are generally against the back-to-back video packages, but in terms of they were then going to an angle and then a match that referred directly to this reunion, I'm kind of like,
it's fine.
Right, okay, yeah, that's fine. I still would have kind of preferred, and I guess if we're watching this on the night, it probably went Slambo recap, then a break, and then, so I've got to take that into account. We get a flashback to Nitro, which is Booker saying he wants to whip Rick Steiner's ass. Mean Gene asks him about, you know, where was your brother in all this? And he goes, Mean Gene, I'm a man on my own. My brother's got his own business. So they've hit the accelerator on the Steiner reunion, and they've dropped a gear on the Harlem Heat reunion for now.
Well, they're obviously negotiating with somebody to come in.
Indeed. Oh, can't wait. So we flash forward to Booker being laid out in the back before his chance to beat up Rick Steiner, and let me tell you, we only got a couple of seconds of hearing it, but this Nitro crowd were pissed, and not in a heat drawing on Rick Steiner way, in a fuck you, we hate this
they
way.
Took away their Booker.
Yeah. If only they'd take away their Booker.
Yeah, well, not
hey,
the Booker,
am I right?
Not the Booker we all wanted taken away.
No. This is not my Booker. Our first match only took just the 6 segments before we got a match on this show. It's WCW World Television title, Rick Steiner versus Scott Putski. And more so than ever before, every Rick Steiner match is now pretty much the fucking same.
What did you think of, first of all, Rick's now blonde little schmig in honor of his brother?
Oh, it's and also the fresh shoe polish black dye on the rest of his beard and head hair. I think that's far more egregious than the little blonde. I kind of like the little blonde, like the homage to Scott thing. I think that's I'm all right with that, but I think like the shade of black that is so dark it's drawing light from the room.
The reflective black hair. What I'm really not okay with is now that Rick Steiner's matches are absolutely just like shite. They're so bad.
Yeah. It's funny because Tenay is trying to do the Lord's work here, putting over Rick Steiner as like this unbelievable veteran talent, because he says that this is Rick's second reign with the TV title, and those 2 reigns are almost exactly a decade apart. He had last held the television title in 1989, which reminds me that I am this show is taking place mere weeks from my 10th birthday. And that's like Rick Steiner had last been considered a mid-carder when I was born, and had risen himself back to the status of mid-carder by the time I was 10.
And now when you're approaching your mid-30s, his son is a forever mid-carder.
Indeed he is. Do you know what I hated on this show?
Was it Scott Putski?
No, it was Larry Zbyszko.
Wow.
Larry, even for Larry, was having a fucking shocker on this show.
Again, I think I'm to the point with Larry especially where I just don't hear him. And that's not good.
You see, yeah, it's not good, but I'm looking forward to us getting to the much worse, like the funny bad era of Thunder commentary. Stevie Ray is on commentary. They're inexplicably getting Hoovy to do commentary sometimes. Stuff like that. Like, that's what I'm waiting for. But Larry is just... I think what frustrates me so much about Larry is that the odd time when he's focused and actually talking about moves and talking about holds, you're like, this guy could be half decent if he wanted to. If he wanted to.
He chooses not to be.
He chooses not to be. He doesn't give a fuck. As evidenced by the fact that the first 90 seconds of this match, he's just talking about Charleston. They're in Charleston next week for Nitro, and he hears the word Charleston and goes on free association for well over a minute about his favourite places in Charleston and what he's going to do when he gets to Charleston next week.
Does he play golf?
Almost none of it has anything to do with promoting the show, which Tenay would reveal over the course of the show is a fucking massive week for them. Because they have a big Nitro with a return we'll talk about soon. And also, they're doing like a crossover where they're having a match on, or a challenge of some sort between Nash and Bret Hart on The Tonight Show for $250,000. And they're really like... Tenay mentions it offhandedly, I think, 3 times on the show. Do you think this is one of the things they show a video package for, Lee?
No, of course not.
Will they fuck? Sure, why would you want to tune in next week to their flagship broadcast, eh? But anyway, yeah, this Scott Putski, man, I feel bad for this poor guy. I don't think he got a single offensive move in this whole match.
No, he literally just got ground down into the mat for most of the match, and Steiner just kind of beat him up a bit.
Yeah. What do you think of him wearing the Wolfpack shirt? Because I definitely today again had to do the Lord's work to explain this, because the crowd were just like, huh?
He's taking the piss out of the Wolfpack by wearing a Wolfpack shirt.
He's doing it to mock them,
even though his
apparently.
brother's in the Wolfpack.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Go figure.
Okay. It's just dumb.
Yeah. He's like rubbing Putski's eyes into the bottom rope. Even Billy Silverman bails out of the ring because he doesn't want anything to do with it. Tanay mentions there'll be, I think, 2 more world title matches on this show. It was the other thing about this match, surprisingly long.
I think it just felt that way. Now maybe it was legitimately long as well, but yeah, it just kept going. And when a match is never in doubt, it very quickly outstays its welcome.
Yeah, I mean, we laughed a few months ago, a few WCW months ago, when Prince Ikea returned and lost his first match back. But at least, he lost a competitive match. Whereas Scott Putski, it's his first match back from injury, and he just gets beaten and beaten and beaten and tapped out.
Yeah, it's... I don't know. I don't see what people see in Putski. I don't like it. No. Especially here, it's just pure jobber to the stars. Fucking feel about him.
Yeah,
and
except Rick Steiner's not a star.
Well,
let's be real.
But yeah, no, the finish of this match sucked as well, because he does the Steiner Bulldog, and then he attempts to lock in some kind of submission. The two of them, get lost along the way, and they just end up in a very weak looking armbar.
It's like the most awkward looking Kimura you've ever seen. It's like he's trying to bend his arm over his leg, but he's bending it the way an arm's supposed to go, so it doesn't look sore at all. It looks like if Anthony's giving him a nice stretch out.
Yeah, it's very odd.
Do you know what's interesting is that one of the tried and tested ways to get somebody heat or to get them over as a babyface, depending on which way you want to go with them, is to just have them relentlessly beat nobodies for a while and then slowly build them up to beat bigger and bigger people. Yeah. But it's funny, apart from we obviously chuckle at when he's just fucking stiffing people around the place. But other than that, if you want to look at it in storyline, it's this guy has been, beating the shit out of no-name people for a couple of months now, and he's got no more, no less over. No. I wouldn't say he's dropped down. I would say if he hadn't done the big angle at the pay-per-view where he gets back together with Scott, maybe would say his star has actually fallen. But it's interesting because he's got a belt now, and he's still not... He doesn't feel he just feels oh, there's Rick Steiner.
Yeah, the TV title had very little prestige anyway. But it also almost feels above Rick Steiner.
Yeah. It feels like that belt is doing no favors for him, and he's doing no favors for that belt. Do you know what I mean?
It also doesn't help that, again, it's like you said earlier, we're at that stage where we know where certain things go, and knowing where this goes just isn't helping my enjoyment of things at all. No,
not at all. We go backstage. Speaking of things we don't want to see where they're going, we get a running storyline now involving David Flair. And that is Flair and the boys backstage, and what appears to be a running thing. We would get more context on this later, which is Flair and the Horsemen bribing people to lay down for David in the ring.
It's not so much bribing as in threatening.
Yeah, it's we're going to bribe you, but also if you don't accept our bribe, we're going to kick the shit out of you. So this time it's Barry Horowitz, and
Big Pop.
Barry Horowitz like, at least he feigns not doing it for a couple of minutes. Whereas we'll talk about the other guy who got bribed, just fucking, like, nearly took their hands off as soon as it was explained to him on Nitro. What do you think? What do you think about this idea for a storyline? Apart from the fact that something I couldn't stop looking at in this scene is how, like, Dino was trying not to break eye contact with Barry Horowitz's nipples for a while during this. I don't know what that was fucking about, but he was just fucking staring at those things.
I simultaneously hate this and love it. It's so kayfabe breaking.
Yeah.
But I think it kind of works in the context of Ric Flair trying to get his son back on side, and like, yeah, the Horsemen are exactly the people to do this with. Like, this wouldn't work if it was the NWO.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think this is a storyline that serves Rick and doesn't serve David at all.
Oh no, David still looks like a fucking absolute moron.
Yeah, no, Gormless idiot David Flair. But, like, it definitely makes Rick... It bigs up the Rick is evil. His the heel authority figure. He's running roughshod. He should be relieved of control.
Even
like,
he
should. There's somebody needs to come in and sort this guy out. But all it's doing for David is this guy not only is such a shit wrestler that he can't beat anyone, and we have to... Like, and it's ludicrous levels of payoff. Like, not with him, but with the other guy they bribe. They bribe him with quite a lot to do one job on TV to David Flair. It's like, so we have to bribe quite heavily for him to get any sort of win. But as well, David Flair is too dumb to, one, be let in on the scam, or two, figure it out when he's in the ring. That these, like, much kind of stronger physical men are taking one single bump and laying it up for the figure four.
It doesn't do him any favors at all.
No,
but I do think it work. I do enjoy that it's the Horsemen do it, and like Arn, like as we would see later on during the match, doing the little hand signals and fucking stuff. Yeah, it's good. It gave me fucking bit of enjoyment out of it.
Again, yeah, with the benefit of hindsight, because we know that, like, from what's about to follow for the rest of WCW's time, we know that David Flair never develops into anyone with an ounce of, like, ring IQ, ability. He's never a good wrestler. So we can say now, looking back on it, it's like, oh, it was a bit shit on him because they just didn't give him a chance out of the gates. But I guess he was a busted flush anyway, so fuck it. You know? Barry gets the message and shakes hands with Rick. Our next match, one of those rare, blessed oases. Hoovy versus Kidman. God bless these men, Lee.
Yeah, this was nice. Just a straight up singles match. I suppose it'd be a cruiserweight title eliminator style match, I suppose you could call it. One of my early takeaways is that Hoovy looks particularly moist.
Yeah, they were both quite wet. Hoovy much more moist. Yeah.
But yeah, this is a classic example for me of one of those matches where it's good, so I just sit back and I don't take a ton of notes.
It's right at the ceiling star rating wise for TV matches during this era. Like, your ceiling in this kind of Monday Night Wars era is about 3 stars, and I would say maybe it's a little bit better, like a 3.25.
Yeah, it's about that. Yeah.
Like if I'm feeling really generous, I might tip it up towards 3.5. But 3.25 seems to be about fair for where it sits. But 3.25 on a show like this feels like fucking Flair Steamboat '89. You know, like that's what it feels like. I thought this was great. Just a great bit of fun. In the middle of the show, it really got the crowd going. You know, we'll get through the kind of breakdown of the match in a minute or two here, but I think for a crowd that had put up with 5 dark matches, at least 3 of which were definitely shite, and the first 30 minutes or so of what we've just talked about, I think this is exactly what you need.
The crowd, I meant to say earlier on, like they were pretty hot throughout the whole show. And I don't know if it's just because of this, they very rarely come to this part of the country. Whether they were genuinely happy to be at Thunder, I don't know. But I do think this proves that even at this point in 1999, WCW was salvageable. Yeah, there was enough there that they could have worked with and stayed. It would have taken.
We're at the phase now where it's not an easy course correct. No. There's definitely a lot of work needs to be put in to get these guys. I'm not even saying back on top, but just get it to be a hot product. But it's still not Mission Impossible yet. Mission Impossible will be coming in the form of Vince Russo later this year. So it's mainly Hoovy early, but I want to talk about two things that are mentioned on commentary. One, again, talking about like how it's a big Nitro coming up for them next week. Hollywood Hogan is back.
He is.
Remarkable recovery from
his leg being absolutely mangled.
His leg explosion surgery that he had with Dr. James Andrews. That Dr. James Andrews, I'll tell you what, miracle worker. Because that has to be like less than 2 months of a turnaround. So I think it was. Yeah, so it wasn't like the pay-per-view just gone. It was pay-per-view before that. And they're already hyping up that he's coming for DDP. Because if you remember, DDP was the kayfabe reason why he took time off, because he shattered his leg with a chair. We also have, oh my god, you want to talk about, like, this just shows how much attention Larry pays to what he's saying as he's saying it. The man fucking shites on for, again, well over a minute about weight differences. Were you listening to this or were you tuned out?
I was fully tuned out.
So Larry reckons, an incredible mathematician and physicist that he is, that the difference between the cruiserweight and heavyweight weight limits is typically 300 to 400 pounds. Just leaving that sit there for a second. So the difference in weight between your average cruiserweight and your average heavyweight must be 300 to 400 pounds.
Now,
I think there's only maybe 2 people in the history of this roster for which that might have been true, and that's like if you had Ray versus Giant.
Does that mean that Larry considers himself a cruiserweight?
He must, because there's no way does he think he's 400 pounds heavier than those 2 men.
Very odd. Very, very odd thing to say.
He says it, and the thing is, like, and this is, I guess, Tenay, ever the professional, that Tenay's not going to be like, what the fuck are you talking about? But, like, he might have if Tony said it. But he's not going to say it to Larry Zbyszko, you know? It's just like, I had to write it down. Because I was just like, and he kept going after that for a while, where he's just like, oh yeah, man, weight difference is so fucking massive. And I can't even remember why he started saying this. Yeah. So we come back from a break and Kidman is in control briefly before Hoovy reverses him and gets the heat. Hoovy does a lot of showboating. That's characteristic of the Hoovy heel run. He does 10 punches in the corner because Kidman powerbombs him out of the corner. Series of counters. There's a cool spot here where Kidman does an inverted suplex over the ropes, but Hoovy posts on the apron and guillotines him. Then does a springboard hurricane rana back into the ring, a big dive out of the ring, back and forth some more. Hoovy goes for a 450, gets crotched. Kidman hits a superplex. I then in brackets wrote "this rules." 2 count off the superplex. I really enjoyed the finishing sequence of this match where Hoovy signals for the Hoovy driver, because again, it's one of those things, it's kind of taken a page out of how Jericho used to be, where it was like every single moment heel Jericho is on top in a match, he's acting like he is the most dominant. So it's like Hoovy is like, yeah, and then he signals for the Hoovy driver and turns around directly into a sky high powerbomb from Kidman. Then Kidman mocks him by, signaling that he's going to do the Hoovy driver. He gets him up for the Hoovy driver. Then Hoovy reverses that, and you think, okay, right, he's hitting the Hoovy driver now. But Kidman reverses again into a roll-up and wins.
Very good.
Which got a really good pop off the crowd. Lovely little match, I thought.
Yeah, like we often say, it's very enjoyable when they just put the cruiserweights out there to wrestle. Like, you will get the corn cobs that will complain that, it means nothing, but listen, sometimes a good match is just a good match, and that's all you want.
Yeah, and kind of like you had alluded to earlier as well, with it being like, it wasn't named at the time, but that it's kind of a title eliminator. Is that Tenay essentially intimates that this puts Kidman back in the path of Ray for a cruiserweight title shot. And you know what? I'm absolutely fine with those two guys circling back towards each other as often as possible, because it's always somewhere between incredible and really, like, it's really good to incredible. There's never been a bad match between the two of them.
Or, well, just high floor, basically.
Just high floor, yeah.
Look, again, anytime they want to put Mysterio and Kidman together, that's A-okay by me.
Yeah, you'll approve of that one. Mm-hmm. We then get what I thought was going to be back-to-back great wrestling segments, because we see the return for the first time in a long old while, Lee, of Kaz Hayashi to the program.
Yeah, and he's still wearing Glacier's vest.
Yes, I had completely forgotten that Sonny Ono bought his gear off him and his entrance.
No, Kaz bought Glacier's gear from Sonny Ono.
Kaz bought... Yes, and Sonny Ono bought the entrance and the pyro for the cat, which was a really good bit when they did it. But we get Ray defending the Cruiserweight title against Kaz. Ray, freshly shaven head. Don't know how I felt about that.
I think it suits him.
Well, it's basically what he's got under the mask now. Yeah. But I don't know. I kind of like him with the short hair when he doesn't have a mask on, instead of like completely shaved.
My big takeaway was I really want that yellow and purple FUBU shirt.
Whoa, you are going to be seeing a succession of incredible FUBU shirts over the next while on this show.
I am looking forward to that the most out of everything that happens in 1999.
Is the high fashion.
Listen, if I can get them in this 2023, I would get myself a FUBU shirt.
There's gonna be, like, if ever somehow we end up doing like a live podcast, you need to wear like a FUBU shirt and Zubaz.
I was gonna say a FUBU shirt and some Jinkos.
Oh, actually, yeah, that's more WCW than Zubaz, isn't it? Zubaz is more of a WWF thing. I got really bitterly disappointed so quickly by this match, Lee. Because
very quickly
we're getting
the Macho Man show.
Yeah, because these two guys could have had an absolute banger, and we all would have had a great time. Sadly, like you said, it becomes the Macho Man Randy Savage show. Explain what happens.
Yeah, so they're kind of just ticking along, and Kaz is in control, it seems, for most of the early portion of the match. And out of nowhere, you hear Macho Man's voice as he starts to walk out the entrance ramp and welcomes everyone to the House of Madness and asks, "Can you take the pain?" And then he starts to personally address Rey Mysterio in particular. Yeah. And he's like, "Rey Mysterio, you are a fine wrestler with a fine reputation."
Yeah.
And it just kind of gets even weirder from there. He talks about how Ray was the guy that beat Kevin Nash and he was the Giant Killer and all. Like, this is all just over a live mic as the match is going on in progress in the ring.
And it's also sort of not going on because, like, it's like they need Ray to be reacting to this. So what they're doing is they're having these two exciting cruiserweights grabbing holds. Yeah. And, like, when this segment kind of plays out and you see that the whole point is that Macho is coming out to try and endear himself to Ray, it makes absolutely no sense why you would come out and interrupt his title defense and distract him.
Because he's mad.
Yeah, he's mad. He's out of control, Lee. Out of control. That's the nomenclature we're using here. So yeah, he surveys Miss Madness, who agrees that Ray is the man, and then we go into a break. It was so weird. They went into a break off that, and then they come back from the break just to show that like how little this company cares about the cruiserweight title. That it's just like it's like straight to the finishing move and pin, and we're lucky we got the finishing move at all. And Tenay really quickly tries to point out that all the way during the break, Macho basically didn't shut up talking. He gets in and he says, cut the music. He says that, Ray, you're the man that beat the man, but I'm not saying that Kevin Nash is the man. You're the man, but I'm the man.
Make sense of that, if you will.
Oh, fucking... This is where you go, right? Okay, I will believe Randy Savage is insane. Like, as a shoot. It's like, what the fuck?
So many men.
He says he wants Ray to join him, basically, because he beat Nash and he's gunning for Nash. So he wants Ray on his side for his secret plan. Which is just always the phrase secret plan will always remind me of Brian Alvarez, with his whole theory about a secret plan angle for the second Triple H Undertaker the Hell in a Cell match.
What was that?
For the Undertaker's streak to be broken, he pitched this idea that there's going to be a secret plan for Shawn to screw over Undertaker. It was a whole thing that people just slagged him off relentlessly over. The secret plan. But anyway, he mentions the secret plan. He wants Ray to join him. I thought, I didn't like this angle. I didn't like that it interrupted the Cruiserweight title match, but I did like, as the babyface champion, how Ray handled this.
Yeah.
He says... Oh, yeah, sorry.
Like, the fans, when Savage offers Mysterio the spot, the fans are into it.
Which is funny, because, like, Macho's supposed to be a heel.
Raised face.
Yeah. Nash is a babyface at the moment. But they have strongly the fans have strongly resisted the urge to boo Savage. They love him a whole bunch.
Savage, yeah.
Still. There's a couple of occasions. There's one occasion on this show where they know they're supposed to boo him, and they do. But mostly they pop for Savage. They love him. Anyway, Ray's response is that he says, look, Randy, I respect you like you wouldn't believe. I grew up watching you, and to team with you would be an absolute honor, but I have other plans right now. Savage urges him to reconsider. His line to reconsider is like, I want you in on my deal because my deal is the real deal. Give me an oh yeah. Whole crowd does the oh yeah. And then Ray, I really love, says, well, I say, oh no. And then Gorgeous George clobbers him in the back. Savage then lays him out. He fights back, hits Savage with a springboard drop kick, but the women hold on to his legs, and then Ray eats a pile driver. I will say, Randy Savage is cracking out like 10 out of 10 pile drivers left, right, and centre lately.
Pile driver is far and away the best move in the fucking whole company at the moment.
Yeah. It kind of feels unfair for the guy to have, like, he has the best elbow drop in the history of the business, and now he's just cracking out unbelievable Hall of Fame level pile drivers as well. It's almost like when you have somebody that's unbelievable at the fundamentals of wrestling, that stuff never goes.
Exactly.
Weird how that works. But anyway, Ray eats the pile driver. Kidman comes out to make a save, and he meets the same fate, which I'm not complaining too much about because, again, we got to see another pile driver. They write Macho in lipstick on Ray's back. Conan comes out and attacks. George, did you spot this? The malfunction?
No.
George goes to club Conan in the back, and the straps on her top break.
Oh, no, I didn't know.
And whatever she was supposed to do, she has to immediately stop doing, and Conan has to drop down and sell because she has to literally like hold herself in her top.
Okay.
Thankfully for her, thank God, there was nothing more serious than that. But yeah, it just kind of like poor Conan had to poor her, obviously number one, but poor Conan as well had to look like a bit of an idiot because he had to like this one fairly weak ass strike to the back. He had to kind of sell like death.
And it's funny because I'm pretty sure in the main event, Medusa has a wardrobe issue.
Yeah, because I was like, in the main event, they come back out and George is in the same top, and I was like, holy fuck, like, is this going to happen twice on the one show? But thankfully it didn't for her. But yeah, I think there was something with Medusa. I didn't quite catch it though. And then yeah, he hits the big elbow, which again, like, we're getting 2 class pile drivers and a big elbow in a segment, so yeah, it's not all bad. Even though I always want to see Kidman and Ray standing tall, I'm quite happy to see those moves. I just love them. I pop for moves. What can I say? Give me entrances and finishers all day long, friend. We get a flashback to Raven and Saturn versus the Horsemen. Arn hit Raven with a tire iron, but Canyon shoved... Oh, in one of the coolest, like, interference finishes. And that's not a high bar, I know, but... Canyon gets up on the rope while Malenko's on the top rope, and he shoves him off the rope, and he's caught in midair into a Death Valley driver. Really, I've never popped to a replay as much in my life. And then, backstage, we get an interesting conversation with Bam Bam. It's just very brief, very, very brief confrontation. I did laugh at Bam Bam calling them turkeys. But again, you're seeing the act that Canyon is associated with coming into the orbit of Bam Bam. Bam Bam is also in somebody else's orbit.
Well, they mentioned in the Hayashi and Mysterio match that DDP and Bam Bam are officially aligned. It's a thing now. And
so,
my thinking...
2 prongs of the triad.
My thinking was Raven and Saturn initially supposed to be brought into this group.
But Raven splits very soon.
Was the plan that Canyon, Raven, and Saturn all align with DDP?
That would be a stable. Mm-hmm. Oh man, what we could have had.
I know we have the history of DDP and Raven, but you can play it off that Canyon's the one that brought them in and plays the peacemaker.
Now there's a diamond mine I would enjoy. Let me tell you. Next up, it's a WCW World Tag Team Title Raven's Rules match. Raven and Perry Saturn with Canyon versus Horace and Vincent, a team deserving of a title shot if ever you've seen one.
Jesus Christ. First,
talk to me about this one, pal.
First of all, Horace and Adams had been the team for the preceding couple of weeks, correct?
Yes. Now, it wouldn't blow my mind too much if Bryan Adams was injured again.
Possibly. But...
Or just didn't fancy showing up to Wichita.
You could just not do Horace versus and a partner versus the champs. Why are you putting Vincent in matches on television?
Why are you putting Vincent in matches?
Yeah, well, look.
Have we not done Vincent? Have we not sussed that Vincent is not good?
Put him on fucking worldwide or whatever, and that's fine. But putting him on one of your main 2 shows just exposes how bad he truly is.
One thing I will say for 1998 WCW is that most of the time Vincent was a valet. Mm-hmm. He wasn't actually wrestling. And because it was a running joke on our show for so long that I don't think this fucker's taken a bump in the whole time we've watched him on the podcast. And I don't know why late 98, early 99 they're like, you know what, let's try with Vincent again. Fucking hell, I get again, it's another case of it's the disciple thing. It's who you know, it's who you're buddies with.
Exactly, it's jobs for the boys.
And there has never there obviously, and I think of fucking Uncle Paul and his stupid fucking Infinity Gauntlet. Like, there's definitely some of the jobs for the boys that happens in every single company. But I can't think of a jobs for the boys guy now in the top 2 American companies who, like, offers absolutely nothing.
It was Hager, but Hager absolutely offers something now.
Yeah, and like for a while you could have argued Sean Spears, but when Sean Spears was the comedy guy in the Pinnacle,
a competent wrestler.
Yeah,
Vincent is not any of those things.
Yeah, and there's like, oh fuck, what's his name? Factory.
Oh, QT.
QT Marshall. Yeah, there was like a lot of people early on with QT before they saw like. And I was included in that where I was like, oh fuck, every segment he's in is death. But then you start to watch like Dark and Dark Elevation and you see him doing his Tony Soprano bit and you see how he's actually the perfect job guy.
He's great.
He's the perfect job guy. But yeah, like Vincent doesn't even offer that. Like, it's never satisfying when Vincent gets the shit kicked out of him because he doesn't look like he's getting the shit kicked out of him. He looks like just a horrible, like fucking giraffe on roller skates, like. He offers absolutely nothing of merit. Never has, never will.
Is this the last we will see of Raven?
I can find out for you. We're getting there.
Right there, as far as I know, of when he leaves the company.
Yeah. I suppose one thing that tells me that it's happening soon is that they're like this match they start doing free bird rules with Canyon, so it almost feels like they're preparing to not have both halves of the champions around.
No, because the whole thing with Raven is that Bischoff has this big fucking meeting backstage.
Yeah. Can you please, like, I know there's a good percentage of our listeners, again, you know, we're on the VOW network. People have heard most of these stories by now, but just for some people who may not have heard how Raven left WCW, would you please tell them? Because it's honestly one of the funniest. So, holy shit, this is the last Raven match.
I knew it was coming up.
This is, so he has 3 more house show matches over the next week, where he beats Hack 3 times and then he's gone. Oh, sorry. He has one on Nitro next week.
So
they retain the tag titles.
The story goes that Bischoff was very fond of having these meetings backstage where he would point out to all of the locker room that in fact none of them were stars other than Hogan, Piper and Nash. I think was the 3 he really liked to point out, like they had drawn money, blah 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 blah. Yeah. And he's
channeling Kenny Omega, obviously.
Look, and he liked to constantly throw in that in 6 months the WWF will be out of business, or this time next year they'll be out of business, or whatever his favorite.
I don't know. Like there was maybe 1 year during the wars, like in 96,
late 96, early 97.
Yeah. You could say, like, every other year he was pulling that out of his arse. That,
but yeah, so Bischoff was having another one of these famous meetings, and
was this because Jericho was negotiating? Like, had it got? Am I remembering that right? That like either he was signing his deal, or it had leaked that he was talking to.
It might have been around, like, involved. I don't know it was that specific reason he was having this meeting, but it was just, you know, Bischoff having his meeting, and he said, if anybody's not happy here, I will give you a release right now.
Yeah.
And Raven being Raven, he stood up in this meeting in front of the whole locker room and said, well, I'll take a release.
Yeah.
And he got released.
Went straight back to
ECW.
Yeah,
the condition was he couldn't go straight to the WWF, so he went and did a 3-month run in ECW.
Yeah, and then he shows up at what, like early 2000.
It's just amazing that they allowed one of the hottest acts on their show just walk out because Eric Bischoff was too busy telling the locker room they were all shit.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. Like they have, like, when we started this podcast, they had, for the era, in terms of like bell to bell ability, one of the greatest rosters ever assembled in wrestling to that point, in terms of people at every position on the card able to work to a really high level. Now, obviously, the people that were pushed the most weren't able to, like your Nashes, your Hogans, and stuff like that. But even in the main event bracket, you had like a Sting,
or a DDP, or a Hall,
or a DDP, or a Hall, or even like a Goldberg, who could work a Goldberg match very well and stuff like that. The mid card and the undercard, absolute, like, unbelievable, overflowing with this excellent generational talent. People who are still working and or influential in wrestling today. And over the course, this will be a story for us on the podcast over the course of this year, because I think as much as the booking, something that kills it to the point of being irreparable is the bleed of talent that they let go. Yeah. Either to ECW, to WWF, or just gone. You know what I mean?
And now that's not to say they didn't bring in talent as well, but that goes back to your other point of the booking was just so bad.
Yeah, it's trying to but they're bringing in a couple of people, and some young people are coming out of the power plant or wherever else that have potential towards the end of this company. But at that point, you're trying to fix the hole in the Titanic by dumping a bucket of water back over into the sea. You know what I mean? You're never going to repair the damage, like, because we've talked about Raven. Giant, like, obviously he's not an unbelievable worker. Giant left earlier in the year, and he was a pushed act. Do you know, whether you're into him or not?
He'd been all over the show for like the guts of 3 years.
Yeah, yeah, and he definitely had a role to play in there, and he was over. Somebody that we kind of like, you know, quietly was just, there was never any big. He's gone now, but he is gone from TV as Jericho.
Yep, Jericho. Raven, as we pointed out.
Jericho was done. And as this year would go on, we'd get more, like, most notably at the end of 99, start of 2000, the Radicals all go. But they're not the only ones, you know. And a lot of the luchadors start disappearing or just being used a lot less, even while still under contract. It's just the riches they have. And, yeah, it's just depressing, isn't it?
It's WCW, unfortunately.
Speaking of depressing, Vincent selling. Yeah, boy. A lot of this match is him selling. Canyon wants in, so he is officially in the match by trading shirts with Raven, which I found very funny. I thought this was really good. I think Tenay forgot who the faces and the heels were supposed to be here. For a second, Tenay is just like, God, you know, these guys making their own rules, Raven's rules, is really tough on the challengers here. And for one brief shining second, Larry was great, because without missing a beat, he shouts, "Good! Yeah, I hate the NWO.
Who could possibly care?" Like,
yeah, it was really funny. The dumbasses get the heat for a while, and like, if there's anything worse than Vincent selling, it's Vincent and Horace having the heat. Slow motion kick punch special. The heat goes on for fucking ages, until Raven gets a hot tag. He does the chair drop toe hold, which Vincent has the cheek to kick out of it too, because he doesn't think Horace is going to get to him on time. Horace has the chair. He accidentally hits Vincent. Raven punches the chair into Horace's face. DVD and a dog pile win. So the last time we see Raven is him getting to do a dog pile. And you could tell by the way he was like kind of breaking character at the end of this match that I think Raven in his own head was beyond done at this point.
I also get the impression he was just having fun.
Yeah, which is why, like, for Raven to do that, like, that tells me
bit of self-sabotage.
Yeah, I think possibly. Because he does, like, he all but does, like, the NWO, like, point the fingers as he's doing the DVD. Really, really, I'm gonna miss Raven so much, man. I really am. It's something we've documented a lot on Days of Thunder, but I think if you were to put the list of pleasant surprises, like, because I think we always knew, like, the two of us have always quite liked DDP, for example, you know, who has been a big part of the podcast. We've always quite liked, who's another example, Jericho. Booker, Goldberg, people like that. I think the number one person who I turned around on their body of work during this period of time for was Raven.
I think for me is I've always enjoyed Raven. I love like even lower card Raven. I've always been a fan of, but for me the big stunner is that just how over he was, and just how many times they had an opportunity to go with him, and they just never did. I've said it. I've written in the Discord. I've said it on the show. When we finish our run of Thunders, one of my things that I am going to take it away from revisiting this era is that whole Saren and Raven dynamic. The run from what it'd be Super Brawl right through to Fall Brawl is like, it's just so good, and it builds and builds, and I genuinely, it's one of my favorite story arcs in American wrestling.
One thing I want to do on the Patreon this year is to start to put together the essential Days of Thunder timeline match list, and him versus Saturn is definitely one. I remember was it him and Canyon in the cage, or was it him and DDP? Was it him, DDP, and Canyon? Was it three-way?
Ooh.
There was a cage match that was really good in '98. Yeah. He features so highly in my esteem during this period.
The three-way with DDP and Benoit that was much better than it had any rights to be.
That's probably, I'm mixing up those two matches, yeah. Do you know, and it really, like, it fucks me off in a big way. Like, I know as a man he's quite annoying. Like, everyone will say that, and I'm sure he will fucking say it himself. But, like, I think the Raven character and his body of work across WCW and ECW, I think a lot of fans just in their head can't let go of how he was put forth in WWF.
Yeah.
And fair enough, like, if that's what you grew up on and that is your context, that's your first impression. First impressions are hard to shake. But I was actually recently listening to a podcast that was talking about the same kind of era. It was stuff we'd already covered, because I won't listen to podcasts that talk about stuff we haven't yet covered, because I don't want to start cribbing their notes. But they were talking about, like, Raven in 1998, and they were burying him. I was like,
you're obviously not watching the stuff.
Yeah, you're obviously just going, this is what people think of Raven, so this is what I'm going to say about Raven. You're not actually watching the work. I'm not gonna say what podcast it was. I leave that stuff to Joe, my friend. That's his job. He names and shames the podcasts. So if he wants to do it, and I'm sure there's fair few context clues that I think people might be able to figure it out.
It was Garrett, wasn't it?
But I won't. Oh, no, it wasn't. God, I wouldn't. I actually, to be fair, with Garrett's area of expertise, I would expect him to be a Raven defender like us.
Yes, if I remember correctly, like, Garrett was all about putting the NWA title on Raven.
This is a guy who still had plenty to offer, like, ECW when he went back. He would have had plenty to offer WWF if they ever fucking put him somewhere where he could offer
Vince
anything.
Didn't hate him for possibly, allegedly giving Shane a fuck ton of drugs in the 90s.
Yeah. He had plenty to offer when he went to TNA, and he had plenty to offer when he was in Ring of Honor, briefly. Let's not forget, there's a very, in terms of influence, do you get CM Punk without Raven making him? There's a lot of Raven and CM Punk.
Fucking headers.
Yeah, and, well, thankfully not some of the more destructive tendencies. there are many ways in which those two men are completely different, but some ways in which they are very much the same guy. But both in terms of like his influence on Punk at various stages in his career, I think particularly of like straight edge society Punk and eras like that, he's pulling heavily from Raven. But also in terms of like one of the first feuds that probably legitimizes Punk as like he's the real fucking deal is that Raven match. The infamous fucking dog collar
like
match.
Raven was probably the first of that older generation to put Punk over.
Yeah. And influential to the extent where there were repeated echoes of that Raven feud in the MJF Punk feud. They deliberately referred back to stuff that happened in that feud, not just in terms of they did a dog collar match, but in terms of promo lines and things like that. Because I bet not only like Punk's whole run in AEW paid a lot of homage to his own history, but also MJF, massive CM Punk fan, I'm sure he fucking loved that feud.
Exactly. And it's that whole thing of Punk has now become Raven.
Yeah.
It's what's that line he said to Cena that you've become that thing you hate.
You become everything you hate.
You're the Yankees.
You're a dynasty.
You're the Yankees.
Yeah. I'm gonna miss Raven. Anyway, let's move on. We get a flashback to Nitro, and this is the Faustian bargain between Flair and Buddy Lee Parker. Buddy Lee is offered not only like cash, but like a cushy office and retirement.
Yeah, a blonde secretary, I believe.
A blonde secretary, yeah. A cushy office and life off the road by Flair. And to the point where like Tenay after this is like, I don't even know if he can actually guarantee that kind of stuff. But Buddy Lee, they show part of the match, and Buddy Lee gets like way more offense in than the Horseman would like, but then he duly does the job. One thing I found extremely unsettling about this match that we were looking back on, Lee, is that Lil Nate was wearing his ring gear with the ref shirt over it, which made it very much look like he was poo bearing.
Yeah, I'm guessing that we got another Little Nate match on Nitro.
Yeah. Either that or he's just like wearing the gear all the time now.
He doesn't on Thunder either. So can't be that.
Singles match. Gormless Idiot David Flair with Ric Flair and the boys versus Barry Horowitz. I love how, in a clear tacit sign of how much everyone cares about Thunder, Flair was decked to the nines in a suit on Monday, and he's just in a polo shirt and slacks for Thunder.
What do you think of David's ring gear of his work?
He looks
shorts.
Literally the next line I had. David looks like absolute shit.
His legs that have no definition.
Baggy black basketball shorts or workout shorts. No definition about him whatsoever. Like you said, yeah, little chicken legs, which if you had anything else to offer would be fine. And then as well, the thing that always makes him look even worse is big red face and a constant expression like he's about to burst into tears.
It's either he's going to start crying or he's constipated. I can't decide which.
Yeah.
He was blown up so quickly.
Yeah, oh my god, this match goes like 2 minutes and he does nothing and he's still blown up. So the Horsemen are out almost immediately. Horowitz goes for a cover, but Arn does the, cutting the neck, cutting the throat signal to get him to cut it out. Horowitz goes for a running knee to the corner. David dodges. I did enjoy Barry Horowitz sells this knee to the padded turnbuckle like he's died.
Brilliant. Plausible deniability there.
Yeah. Figure 4 wins. And then, like you said, David Flair absolutely blown up in celebration. And Barry Horowitz, like, he has that remorseful, I've just sold my soul look, which I think saves face a little bit for him. But yeah,
he's not a regular fixture, I don't think, on the show. So,
do you want to recap us, Lee, the next flashback to Nitro and what was happening between Savage and Nash? Because this is like a classic, the politics and the bullshit segment.
So we get a flashback to Nitro, and it's new WCW commissioner, or no, he's not quite new commissioner, but anyway, it's Roddy Piper with his new best friend Eric Bischoff.
Yeah. It was, he had been commissioner the whole time, but they forgot he was, and he just wasn't on TV for a long time.
So it's Commissioner Piper, Bischoff, and Randy Savage in the ring. Savage wants a title shot against Nash. Piper refuses, says, I think he says Savage needs to kind of prove himself or something like that. So Savage responds by deciding to pile drive the ever-loving fuck out of Roddy Piper. The women beat up on Bischoff, and as Macho sets him up for the elbow, Kevin Nash comes out to make the save. So Nash, we get like a jump cut, and Nash is now on the mic and says that if Savage wants a shot, he can get it. He says the last time Nash had the belt, they know very well it was a political decision.
I just cringed.
Sorry,
so
a political
hard.
move to have him lose the belt.
Yeah.
And this time they'll have to pry it from his cold dead hands.
Yeah, that part I
And
liked.
let me tell you, just
It's actually maybe it's maybe the first time it seemed like Kevin Nash cares about the world title.
it was a political move thing. That's just I
Yeah.
could do without that. We then cut to later on in the night where it's DDP versus Nash for the title, and it ends up with DDP, Bam Bam, and Savage all attacking Kevin Nash.
Smart casual Bam Bam wearing a shirt.
He was.
Shirt and jeans, was it?
Sure looked that way anyway, yeah. I should add that Savage's new thing, instead of spray painting people, is to smear lipstick on them.
Yeah, or to get his cadre to do it for him, as they would do on this show. Yeah, I'm not feeling like I was kind of feeling the whole Savage is like a man possessed trying to like tear apart this whole company to get at Nash, but then when you have Nash being like cool guy talking about politicking and shit like that, I'm like, it just completely took the air out of it for me.
Yeah, not good.
Anyway, no. Singles match, Disco Inferno versus Kurt Hennig. Blink and you'll miss it, this one. Lots of talk this week about Nash and Brett for the 250k, which is where they're talking about it. So they're trying to really gin up interest in WCW next week by having like really loading Nitro with the Hogan return, and then also going like they're going to be on Jay Leno, and we're going to have cameras backstage at the Tonight Show, so if anything happens in the build up to that, so they're like doing Jay the honors by trying to lead the WCW audience on Nitro into Leno. It's interesting because like them cozying up to NBC is really weird for like a property that was obviously never going to leave Turner.
Yeah, and obviously was Dick Ebersol was in charge of NBC.
Yeah.
Obviously very good friends with...
Yeah, because around this time he's cooking up the XFL.
He's very good friends with one Vincent McMahon.
Yeah.
So it's one of them odd things that probably doesn't get talked about enough, is that WCW had this very obvious relationship with Jay Leno, who at certain points looked like he was going to get moved off NBC.
It'd be the equivalent now to like AEW running angles on like Seth Meyers or fucking Jimmy Fallon,
on NBC,
and you're just like, and it's Fallon, Seth Meyers, and I can't remember because there's three, isn't there? I think. But Fallon and Seth are definitely on it, so it's like them running angles on one of those shows, and you're just like, NBC Universal are like in bed with WWE. Like, what the fuck is going on here?
The two lads that showed up on Nitro are Nitro, fucking hell. Showed up on Raw was Michael Che and
Colin Jost. Yeah, from SNL. Yeah.
So it'll be like AEW having an SNL crossover.
Shut up on Raw. They were on WrestleMania. They were in the Andre. Remember?
No.
The two of them were in the Battle Royal. Was it Braun Strowman took the two of them out?
Andres are not my my specialty subject, so
yeah. But anyway, that's what I mean. Like, it'd be insane if that happened with AEW. But anyway, Larry and Tenay, they also, this is brilliant, like with Bret Hart's history of like going out and just like shooting the shit at the moment, they're saying Bret is suspicious of NBC fancying themselves as wrestling promoters. Which is just like, I'll bet he was. I'll bet
Bret
he
just
was.
didn't want to do the job on NBC.
Yeah, within like 30 seconds, maybe to a minute of this match starting, your favourite Randall Savage is out again, except this time he does my bidding as he completely fucking destroys Disco.
Well, we should say Disco jumped in first, because
Yes.
Disco is obviously still a member of the NWO Wolfpack.
And that's what Tenay points out. And like Tenay says it with a tone of, oh, the NWO thing is wrapping up, because he's like, he's one of the only remaining members of the NWO. And I was like, oh, if wishing made it so, Tenay, that the NWO would never come back. Unfortunately, 2000 is going to have some news for you, my friend. He exposes the concrete and rubs Disco's face in it. He takes out the ref, but then Buff comes out. He attacks Miss Madness. Medusa takes a bump. Nick Patrick out like a fucking sprinter. 100-meter sprinter, and our main event just starts. So that was kind of like, I was annoyed at first because like, oh, another match is fucking wrecked and this is a segment, we're gonna have to put up with this again. But nope, main event immediately starts, so they're not wasting their time.
Which
now.
I did think is good, because something you very rarely see on these shows is where segments bleed into the next.
Yeah, it was a change of pace.
So I mentioned it earlier on. Gorgeous George, right? This might be a bit of a hot take.
Mm-hmm.
She's so much better ringside than Nora, Miss Madness, Molly Holly, whatever you want to call her.
Oh yeah,
Like, I'm guessing it's still like early in her career or whatever, but Nora seems pretty lost at this point.
Yeah, and I think it's tough for Nora because she's like the third one that got added to the act, and like Medusa is fucking Medusa. Like, do you know what I mean? She's been in the business for ages, and she has like,
she has
not gonna fucking like. She has gravitas. She has a presence. She has a physical charisma, if not charisma.
Gorgeous George is so active at ringside.
Look, we said this at the pay-per-view. It's like Gorgeous George, for all her greenness to the business, is like a bundle of energy and personality.
She's constantly either banging the ringside mat, or she's talking to Medusa, or she's shouting something at Savage, or she's roiling up. Like, she is so good as a ringside like manager, valet, whatever you want to call her.
Yeah.
And I think it's a damn shame that she didn't go on to do more in the business.
Yeah, and I think like I feel bad for Nora because I think part of it is probably like seeing how Medusa is and seeing how Gorgeous George is. She's like, well, I can't ape either of them. But I think she's like, I want to say she's trying to do the distinguished Elizabeth role almost, but like even more kind of docile. And I just think it's one person too many. I think even if it wasn't Nora, if it was somebody else, I think it's one person too many for that kind of little stable he's got going there.
I think they're very
very
enjoyable as a quartet. I think it's like a cool looking grouping, because you have this like, it's been established, this absolute lunatic, and for whatever reason he just has these three women that are not afraid to get involved by his side. We mentioned earlier on, Medusa at some point in this matchup has a wardrobe issue because she is wearing like a red leather catsuit, not too dissimilar than Britney Spears very famously would have had around this time or a little bit later. And then when she comes into the ring for the finish,
for Baby One More Time, is it not Baby One More Time? No.
Oops, I did it again.
Yes.
Yes. So when she gets into the ring later on, she has a jumper tied around her waist.
So obviously the pants
I'm
split.
guessing there was some kind of issue.
Yeah, I imagine you can't get too physical with like those. Are like you need to be sewn into them.
She did. She got very physical all throughout like every segment they were involved in.
Yeah. Again, like she's a wrestler. She can't resist it. Like even though she probably knew, I was like I shouldn't. But
okay. And listen, I've always enjoyed Medusa. I think she's great.
I thought, like, this was... There were moments in this where I enjoyed how, like, quick and physical it was for these two guys. Like, Buff is immediately on Savage when the bell rings, whipping him into the rails, back in, 10 punch, shoulder tackle. Savage tries to mule kick him out of the corner, but he stuffs it. Buff runs into a boot, but comes back with a drop kick. Savage is dazed, snapmare, stomp, chin lock. Savage gets in control, whips Buff into the rails himself, back in. Buff nearly scores a roll-up. In an unmitigated burial, Larry refers to... Did you hear what he referred to Miss Madness as? He referred to as, and I quote, Mona with the banner or whatever. So, God bless her. Larry was doing her no favours this evening. Buff tries to fight back. Snapmare, elbow drop, brawling outside. Savage has a chair and chokes Bagwell against the rail, which causes disqualification. Savage throws down Nick Patrick, enraged, gets back in the ring. Medusa rolls the chair into him. Savage gets George and Medusa to come in and pin the chair to Buff's neck while he attempts to do the elbow drop, but security is out. He relents momentarily, slugs a few security guys, and we go off the air. I think if maybe this was the only, like, this 1-2 punch of the semi-main event and the main event, if this was all the Savage being crazy we got, we'd probably be a lot higher on it.
I think if he even just had this and, like, half of the Mysterio segment, if he came out, like, right at the end of the Mysterio match, I think it would have been acceptable.
Yeah. Or if we'd had, like, after the Mysterio match, like, him getting ready to go out and he runs into Mysterio backstage and does it. I know they don't do a lot of backstage stuff in WCW, but this was maybe one occasion where you could have. One thing about this segment that I would have liked it when the security guards were still standing. There's a moment where I'm like, he's still going to do the fucking elbow. I would have loved to see him drop the elbow through the crowd and have, like, all the security guards go like fucking bowling pins. That would have been a great look. And you want to talk about, like, getting a guy over as, like, a madman and also a star and also a tough bastard. Like, if he'd laid out the fucking security staff.
Yeah, but I think even for him, doing a dive through that many people wouldn't have been good for either the person on the ground or the security or Savage himself.
Oh, it would have sucked for all of them. Yeah, would have, absolutely. I think it just would have been a great visual, like him just dropping the elbow and then parting like the Red Sea. It would have been... I would have loved it. Right, that brings us to the end of Thunder. What did you think of the show? Winners and losers.
I didn't hate the show. Like, it was a pretty easy watch. I thought, like I said, the crowd I thought was very good throughout the whole show. Again, there was enough there for me to say there's still hope for this company. It's just they get in their own way a lot of the time. I think the Savage stuff was just slightly on the overdone level. I did enjoy Kidman Hoovy a lot. They'd be my two. Yeah. I thought they had a really good match.
Yeah.
Losers, I don't know, like us for having to watch Vincent again.
Mm-hmm. I've noticed that in our losers section, us comes up a lot.
It does, but generally that's how both of us feel.
Yeah, certainly the case. Our finish counter, brought to you by Ludwig Borga, gives us 7 matches with 5 clean finishes, sort of, I wrote in brackets, because one was a bribe-related, not clean finish. And we get 2 DQs or countouts, back-to-back, as it happens. That's all for another episode of Days of Thunder. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back on the free feed in 2 weeks. In the meantime, largemanapears.com is where you need to go to get more of our nonsense for just €5. Until then, folks, we shall see you. Stay safe. Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone, for listening to another episode of Days of Thunder. Days of Thunder was produced by Lee Malone and edited by me, Dave Ryan. To keep up to date with the show and find all the ways to listen to us, you can follow us on Twitter at WCW ThunderPod or click the Linktree link in our Twitter bio or in the show notes. I am at the Day to Dave on Twitter, and Lee is at Malone_713. Days of Thunder is a part of the Voices of Wrestling podcast network. Follow the VOW network anywhere good podcasts are sold for more fine podcasts that you can shake a stick at. Thanks.
I can hear